Welcome. My name's Chris Scott, and this podcast was originally recorded for the UK Wine Show with the WST Level 3 in mind. We've re-edited this podcast for the WST Level 3 podcast now, so I hope you enjoy it. Hi, I'm here with Phil Ryan. He's the General Manager and Chief Winemaker at Mount Pleasant. How are you, Phil?
Well, thanks, Chris.
Just thought we'd touch on a wee bit about Mount Pleasant, and because you're actually part of McWilliams, aren't you?
That's right. Mount Pleasant is a wholly owned subsidiary of McWilliams Wines. Mount Pleasant dates back as a vineyard to about 1860 or so. Developed as a winery by the brand Mount Pleasant by Maurice O'Shea. And by 1940, McWilliams had purchased the company from Maurice O'Shea, but he stayed on as General Manager and Winemaker and Chief Winemaker.
So we're in sunny New South Wales, here in Hunter Valley. What's so special about Hunter Valley?
Well, the Hunter Valley is a wonderful place. It's got great lifestyle, of course, but it has a very unique viticultural aspect, and we found Semillon and Shiraz in particular just found their home here over the last 170 years or so. It is a natural valley. The valley is about 180 kilometres wide and about 200 kilometres deep, just north of Sydney, only a 2-hour drive up the track. Has a unique aspects and climate here, which does help in producing these classic aged wines.
What are those aspects?
In the afternoons here, we do get a lot of cloud cover, so we have a natural cooling effect from the ocean. We have quite dry winters leading into relatively dry spring, so the opposite of most viticultural areas. But we do get glorious sunshine through the spring and summer. Our grapes ripen very quickly and produce wonderful flavours.
I've spoken to a few people in the past and read a wee bit about Hunter Valley, and they say you get sort of rain during picking. Is that a major hassle?
Well, it is. It keeps you honest. The great thing about winemakers say if you can make wine in the Hunter Valley, you can make wine anywhere in the world, because all the viticultural challenges are here during the growing season.
Okay. And New South Wales has got some new areas that are really starting to open up now, aren't they?
Lots of things happening in New South Wales, right along what we call the Great Dividing Range, which is the mountain range which goes from Victoria up into Queensland. Very ancient soils, and we're seeing places like Orange, into hilltop areas around Young, Tumbarumba, Cowra, and a few others where there's along this mountain range producing really exciting styles of wine.
The reason we're here really is to get our head around Hunter Valley Semillon. It's not always been called Semillon, has it?
No, it's had a very long, checkered and really confusing background. We looked at our first English settlers here, and we believe they sourced Semillon as cuttings from South Africa around Constantia, where Semillon had been planted about 200 years earlier by the Dutch. And when it arrived in Australia, it had lost its name viticulturally and was called here Shepherd's Riesling, named after the first nursery in Sydney in the Darling Harbour area. And from there it came into the Hunter Valley as Shepherd's Riesling. And later on its name was changed to Hunter Valley Riesling. And it wasn't until about 1960 that we actually discovered that we weren't growing a form of Riesling at all, we were growing actually Semillon. So Riesling was the name it had for over 100 years. And coupled with that, we even called it Chablis, Hock and White Burgundy. So we've done everything possible to confuse everybody about the stuff.
You guys are known for aging your Semillons. What's going on with Semillon as it ages? And we're going to taste a couple of Semillons in a moment.
Well, the joy of Semillon is it's a variety which does lend itself to bottle aging, and right through its whole life, from a very young pup when it's first made, it has this incredible freshness and limey, zesty, citrus aromas and flavours. And as it matures, it just develops into something unique in the wine world. No one else can produce a style of wine like what Semillon can do in bottle aging. This is all done without any oak interference. It's just purely a wine that's fermented in tank and then bottled. And then over the next 10, 20 years even, or even longer, the wine ages and matures gracefully, and the flavours just grow and grow, and they become nothing like what the wine starts. So it has a great path.
Your Mount Pleasant Elizabeth, you were talking earlier about it being released at quite different times. Can you just walk through? Let's taste these.
Well, we should start with the 2005, which is our young, what we call our classic Semillon, and that is, if you like, the baby Elizabeth, if you like. It's not sold as Elizabeth, but it's just a very current vintage, young, fresh, and it's all that limey, zesty characters. On the nose, there's even hints of herbaceousness there, grassy hints, etc.
Yeah, you can almost confuse it as a savvy from a warm climate.
Exactly. Sauvignon Blanc, that draws you to the wine. I love these aromas. They're magnificent with food, and also it's a great wine as an aperitif.
A little bit fatter than the mouth than the Semillon.
Yes, and that is the exactly what Semillon will deliver, because it has much more flavour construction on the palate than Sauvignon Blanc. People who blend Semillon with Sauvignon Blanc do that. Gives the Sauvignon Blanc the foundation and the breadth and the more fruit flavour.
Let's try the next one.
We now go to our current release, Elizabeth. This is a 5-year-old wine, and this has been the company philosophy to give our Semillon some bottle age before we release it. So these wines are bottled straight after production. After they finish fermentation, they go from tank into bottle, and then they're matured in our cellars for 5, 6, even longer years to allow these flavours to develop. You see the colour has changed now. There's a slight more deepening yellow, and still that lime, sort of a greenish tinge in the wine, which again speaks of quality. And the aromas now are very vastly different to what we've looked at in the first wine. You're now seeing nuts and toast and honey and lanolin. Again, the palate is mouth-filling. Lovely crisp acidity that finishes these wines, and that acidity that keeps these wines alive.
It tastes like there's no malolactic in there. Is it had malolactic?
We avoid that like the plague. Malolactic in a Semillon actually destroys the structure of the wine, and it flattens it and dulls the wine. The important thing that with Semillon is we pick it as a variety quite early. It's picked at about 10 or 11 Beaumet, which results in about 10 or 11% alcohol. So the wines are relatively low in alcohol, which means you can drink more, which is a pretty positive thing. But this acidity is the key to these wines producing this lovely fresh flavours, lovely zingy flavours.
Okay, and the next wine is the
1997, which we now call the Museum Elizabeth. So what we've done is the same wine as the previous one. It just is held in bottle, stored for a longer period of time. We release most of the wine, and a few thousand cases are kept back for that final release as a museum wine. This again is show that there's life after the first release. The wine still has further maturation to undergo and still is developing. It would suit different sorts of food.
The acidity is still there, but it's not as lively. It's really toned down a wee bit, hasn't it?
And the palate is very soft, and it's almost gives the impression of slight sweetness. All these wines are bone dry. What that is just the further development of the wine. It gives it a broader and more developed, almost a concentrated honey character again.
It's not as crisp as the other wines, is it? So something I've never really got my head around is winemakers always tell me the pH level or the acidity of the level doesn't change, or even the total acidity doesn't change. But as wines get older, they always feel like they're losing that acidity. What's going on there? Yeah,
this is again the great joy of Semillon, that it retains its freshness. As I said earlier, we pick this wine when they are lower in sugar than most varieties, so you have a higher natural acidity in the grapes. Also, in the grapes, in the juice, this means that the pH, which is a chemical term, which is more or less a measure of acidity, is a very low level of pH. So that tells you then there's a crispness in the juice. There's natural inbuilt prevention of oxidation due to this low pH, and also prevents microbial spoilage. So the wine has in it, if you like, inbuilt guards against some of the reasons that wines will prematurely age or be spoilt bacterially. So the natural acidity and the low pH are two very key ingredients into producing a wine which will then mature, as you see with these wines. Here, the next wine we're looking at is a 1994. So this has been in bottle 12 years. And again, that low pH and that naturally high acidity has kept that wine in and allowed it to age so beautifully. Very concentrated toast character.
The toast is coming through a lot more now than maybe the other ones. Honeyness isn't as much either, though.
No.
Normally I'd expect the wine to get more and more honeyed as it gets older.
But here you're seeing it. Actually, there's a lovely story on this vintage, the 1994 vintage. For those people who were living in Sydney at the time, we're quite close to Sydney. Was a very horrific bushfires in New Year, and the bushfires were right around this area, and Sydney was ringed by the fires, and we had no sun for 7 days. and the place was full of smoke and ash, and we picked these grapes about a week or so after the bushfires were extinguished by some rain. And people always say there's a sort of smoky character in the wine as well.
I've heard that. I've heard all sorts of...
But I put it down to, again, the natural ageing characters of Semillon in the bottle, which is that strong, toasty, nutty character as it comes through in that wine.
There's definitely a good colour change from the young 2005 through to the 12-year-old museum. It's in Museum Elizabeth, 1994.
Again, they're very attractive colours too, aren't they? They're really
quite bright.
Very bright. Yeah, the wines actually have a real. They're almost luminous. They're lovely, bright shine to them. Yeah.
Reminds me of a Saturday morning after a hard night out. I suppose I'm not allowed to say that.
Yeah, I can share that with you. Yeah, you're right.
How long do you think Semillon is good to last for?
Well, we don't know. And in the past, Semillon has been controlled by the method of closure. And I believe now we're moving into screw cap with these wines, that there is potential for these wines to, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years, who knows.
Okay. Do you think you need to give them a minimum aging? They're tasting quite nice young. They're a very different wine after 7, 8 years in bottle.
Exactly. I don't like to dictate the age of the wine you should drink it. Semillon has such potential to drink it at so many different ages, because the flavours are all changing. So it becomes a choice by choice. People who like mature wines have an opportunity here to buy a Semillon and mature it in their cellars and watch it age and see the different flavours as they emerge over a long period of time. Or you can buy it as a young, fresh, upfront, fruit-driven wine and just sit out there in the sun and have it with a great plate of seafood, prawns or oysters or whatever. These wines suit food so beautifully.
Yeah, I had your Elizabeth the other night with some seafood and it was yummy. Phil, I've seen a lot of Sauvignon Blanc Semillons blends as I've been moving through Australia. What's going on there? I notice you guys don't seem to have a Semillon blend here.
I find those wines absolutely delicious, but we concentrate on making that style of wine, Sauvignon Blancs, SSBs we call them, particularly over in Western Australia, Margaret River. Ideal place there where you get the intense gooseberry characters of the Sauvignon Blanc, and then it's supported then by the lovely richness of the citrus and the grapefruit from the Semillon. So the Semillon then becomes, if you like, the foundation of the wine, and then the Sauvignon Blanc sits on top with all those wonderful aromas. Here in the Hunter Valley, we don't get those characters as a young wine, and there is some herbaceousness and gooseberry characters there, but the terroir of the Hunter Valley really does support just making straight Semillons, where you allow the wine to express itself as it does. You've seen here these young wines, and then you see how it then grows in the bottle over a period of time. And blending it with a Sauvignon Blanc from another area is not really the way to go with making this classic style. We're looking at strictly making classic Hunter Valley Semillon, which has a unique place in the world of wine, and it doesn't need Sauvignon Blanc. Whereas certainly other areas, those fresh gooseberry characters mixed with some Semillon, delicious drink.
Yeah, so the Semillon's providing a bit of fatness and width in the palate, and you're getting that upfront punch with the Savvy.
So yeah, exactly. And they're the perfect partnership, those two. In particularly, we're very excited by the styles we're getting out of Margaret River, and they're very, very popular styles. And the two varieties just interblend magnificently, and they all the attributes of freshness and upfront aromas, and then down below you've got that nice rich palate structure which gives it the flavour.
What about selling Semillon? Do you find it's tricky selling it? Whenever I'm in the UK, you talk to an Aussie in the wine industry, they go, "Oh, Hunter Valley Semillon, it can't get better than that." But then you never see anything that's older than the current vintage.
Yes, yeah. Semillon is definitely a hard sell, no question that. It's a hand sell. Things are happening with Semillon internationally now. We're getting much better response. People who visit Australia come to the Hunter Valley, taste the wines. They go back with a whole new idea of what these wines are, and we are certainly doing much better now in our sales, particularly in the UK. The UK market has grown tremendously in the last few years. because again, they're getting away from possibly Australian Chardonnay, looking at what else is out there.
Yeah.
And we're poised there really with a great product which will meet that marketplace.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for taking the time to see us, Phil.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.